Good morning to you all. This is another, I don't know if it's a mastermind call more than a Map Tuesday call, but we're very grateful to have Peter speaking to us today, and I'm going to hand over straight to him.
Thanks, Heather. I'm hoping Terence does join us, because Terence and I had breakfast yesterday, and I told him that I was talking today. I didn't tell him what I was talking about, but interestingly, yesterday he gave me a book, and I don't know whether you can see it. I'll send a copy of the cover later. It's called The Power of Intentional Living, living intentionally or living accidentally. And really, that's what today's about. Mick and I were talking before we started, and I just said, really, part of it was inspired by last week and this question of intentional living as opposed to drifting. And then the other one, and I'm so hoping that you will be here, was what Redka had to say about her experiences, and how she has these, with her husband having been kidnapped, and what that means to her. And I was saying to Mick, I can relate to that when I think about the aftermath of being mugged, and how I have these sort of throwbacks when I'm out on the road. And if there's somebody coming up behind me, I get a little nervous. So that's the background to it. So let's move on. So Mick, if you could just move on to the next slide. Removing the thorns that block your path to purpose. Imagine a pebble in your shoe, annoying at first, but eventually unbearable if left unaddressed. In life, we carry pebbles too, small issues that can evolve into great obstacles if ignored. Like a farmer sowing seeds where the soil determines the harvest, our hearts are the soil in which our dreams, purpose, and intentions are sown. Tending this garden is crucial, because some seeds fall on good soil and others land amongst thorns, which threatens to choke the dreams out of us. How do we tend to our dreams? Jesus illustrated this in the parable of the sower, where the seeds are scattered on different grounds. On the pavements, the seeds are taken by the birds. On shallow, stony soil, plants grow quickly but die from lack of depth. And among the thorns, healthy plants are choked, unable to bear fruit. Only in good soil can a seed flourish and yield a harvest. This parable isn't just about seeds. It's about the condition of your hearts, and how we tend to our dreams. The next slide, please, Mick. Can we have the next slide?
That is the next one, Peter. The one before was how, I think once, is that right?
The one I'm wanting the one after that. Tending your heart, ruthless with thorns. There we go. Ruthless discerning with tares. As we navigate life, it's easy to be tempted to focus on external weeds, the people or situations that provoke, disappoint, or frustrate us. But these tares are distractions. Jesus taught to leave the tares, for they do not prevent us from bearing fruit. Instead, we must focus on the thorns, the pebbles within our shoes. Fear, pride, and doubt are far more dangerous than someone else's opinion or fleeting criticism. By addressing our internal obstacles, we reclaim our purpose. Deal with the thorns in your life. Worry, anxiety, self-doubt, and bitterness don't disappear on their own. They grow and wrap around our dreams, stifling them. Remove these thorns with intention. For instance, when worry threatens to overtake you, practice surrender and gratitude. When cynicism arises, choose faith. This is the daily work of tending your heart. Be ruthless what drains you. Don't tolerate inner narratives or habits that pull you down. Just as the gardener pulls weeds before they overtake the garden, address anything in your heart that hinders growth. Be ruthless in removing the thoughts that rob your peace and steal your confidence. You might have people in your life who are sources of irritation or judgment. It could be a harsh boss, a difficult family member, or an acquaintance who doubts your potential. These external tears, though frustrating, don't have the power to change your destiny. They are temporary distractions. Don't waste energy on them. Focus instead on the thorns within your heart, the doubts, the fears, and the anxieties that you can control. Our hearts are the gardens of our destiny, where the most profound growth takes place. As Proverbs warns, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Guarding our heart means tending to our inner lives as a gardener tends to a gardener. As we pull out the weeds, address the thorns, leave the tares alone, we prepare ourselves for a great harvest. Remove the thorns and nurture the seeds of greatness. By cultivating this good soil within, we lay the foundation for a life of purpose and abundance. Just as the pebble in your shoe can cause more harm than a boulder in your path, thorns in your heart can derail dreams more effectively than any external obstacle. Embrace the journey of clearing the soil of your heart, taking out the thorns and leaving the tares alone. In the end, a fruitful life begins not in what you battle externally, but in the inner work you faithfully pursue. Remove the thorns and nurture the seeds of greatness within you. As John 15 says, I'm the true vine and my Father is the gardener. Allow the master gardener to prune your life, uproot your thorns, and ready your heart for a bountiful harvest. Thank you. Would anybody like to comment?
Passmore?
Thank you very much, Peter and Heather, for the wonderful talk. I 100% agree with Peter that we need to garden our hearts. And one of my takeaways is the last part where he talks about the inner work. As human beings, we usually want to work from outside, inside. But I think from the illustration that has been given, that we need to work from inside, outside, dealing with the thorns in our lives and being ruthless with what drains us. Usually this is not easy, to pull out the weeds so that you just remain with the good crop, but it has to be done, tending our dreams. And that wonderful parable, that seeds flourish only in good soil. There are thorns there that will choke the seed, but the best is that good soils are the only one that can support a good seed. I sincerely appreciate the talk and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Passmore.
Thanks, Passmore. Mick?
Thank you, Peter. It is interesting. I think a couple of weeks ago, more than a couple of weeks back now, I was talking about, even those negative thoughts or negative feelings that maybe you have. And, if you're thinking about them, what you're actually doing is nurturing them. You're giving them love. And it can be, and when you give something love, it's hard to let it go, right? So it's a challenge to break free from those thoughts and feelings that you have, especially those negative ones or those bad ones, those things that distract you and take you off your path. And it's easily done. You know, like there's no doubt when you're talking about, you know, keeping your dreams, you know, or your vision, staying on your vision, and not being distracted. Telling you it's difficult, it's hard, right? It is. Anybody who tells you it's easy, you know, isn't really trying to live a life of purpose. Do you know what I mean? It's challenging. It is for sure. So, you know, faithfully pursue. I think that can be a challenge in itself. You know, just having faith, you know, in what it is that you're doing, and having faith in yourself and belief in yourself. That can be a challenge. It can, especially if you know, if up until, you know, the point in life where you're at, to try and change your mind, to change your life is a big step. It's hard to change your thinking. You know, how do you change those thoughts? You know, obviously you can come to a group like this and come around a different set of people, you know, that are going to encourage and support you and believe in you, maybe even before you believe in yourself. But it is a challenge. There's no doubt about it. You know, all of it is. But I think it's a worthy cause, you know, to try and become a better version of yourself by practicing some of the things that you've spoke about there, Peter. Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, Mick. Peter, I was listening to you talk and reading the slides as well, and I was thinking it from a slightly different angle. You ended with looking inside yourself, and that the change has got to come from within, basically. And I think that when we look inside ourselves and we start viewing thorns and weeds and tears, and the thing is that perhaps maybe we got to ask ourselves, do we have some preconceived ideas here? Are we judging the soil? Perhaps. I mean, first of all, ask yourself, what seed do you have to sow? Because if you are feeling the fear and the pride and the envy, maybe your seed is probably not the right seed to be sowing. So I think you've got to ask yourself, what seed do I have to sow? Then you've got to ask yourself and get rid of any preconceived ideas and stop judging the soil that you're sowing in, because you don't know the soil as much as you know the seed, because you are sowing the seed, right? And so I love that analogy of the garden being your heart, because that is where your seed is coming from. Should you just keep sowing, even though you look at the soil and you think, there's stones there. There's a lot of thorns there. What you know, are you deciding in advance what is going to choke it? So I think there's more to looking inside oneself and what we've got to sow. And I think that when you are comfortable and more relaxed and sowing that loving, caring, understanding seed, not judgmental, not excuses, I think we will probably find that the thorns can be clipped, the weeds can be pulled, and most profoundly, I agree with you. The tear's got to be left. There are some things you cannot change. And so by looking within yourself, you can find a way to deal with them. What do you think, Peter?
Yeah, I just, you know, I got quite inspired again by going through this presentation. And there were just, you know, so many things that just stood out. And we talk about guarding the heart. It's something we talk about regularly, but what does it really mean? And suddenly, when we talk about, well, that's where our dreams are, and what's preventing us. Mick spoke about the faith factor. And I think it's a case of digging into that faith factor to say, we want to do this. Why are we not doing it? What's holding us back? And I just love this thing about the gardening and how we need to do that constant gardening and a constant re-evaluation. And I say both our identity and our environment, that I think there are times we lose sight of our identity because we have these doubts and anxieties, and we need to be looking at that. So it's something we need to go through on a regular basis, and then say, exactly where are we, and until we've sorted out who we are and exactly where we are, it's difficult to move forward.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Passmore?
I highly appreciate the heart being likened to a garden, like the Bible says in Proverbs, in chapter 4, verse 23, that you guard your heart with all diligence or carefulness, because all the issues of life are coming from there. Previously, it used to be taken that when one talks about the heart, you are talking about the mind, you are talking about the brain. But research now shows that the heart can think independent from the brain. The heart does its thinking. The heart has got a brain on its own, which is the seat of emotions when you talk about the subconscious. So the heart truly does a lot of things for us that when the heart is cultivated well, like that question that Heather you have asked, what seed do I have to sow? So here the seed and the soil must match. No wonder the soil scientists, they have to see. If they want to plant potatoes, what soil supports the potatoes? They look at the pH. Is it acidic soil? Is it alkaline? Is it neutral? If it needs to put some lime so that you bring it to the level so that when you plant the seed, you are going to have the harvest. And I don't think we do a lot of that work when we talk about the heart. What am I sowing? What harvest do I want to get? So I get that we need to be intentional about what we have to put in our hearts and what harvest we expect to get from there, especially that we can only live once. Thank you.
Mick?
Yeah, to be honest, like I do really enjoy these conversations, and the more we talk about it, the more comes to mind. And we talk a lot here about self-reflection and things like this.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt, what Peter's been talking about here is about some of that, and what Passmore's talking about, and what you're talking about, Heather, is self-reflection. And then I think about the burden. Like you highlight these things, or maybe these things that are going on, these pebbles in your shoe, and then you're thinking, yeah, but these are my pebbles. I don't want to give these pebbles up. Like I want to keep them. They're comfortable right now. I'm in this space, and so it's great that you've got this self-reflection. It's great that you can spot these things. But in order, like Passmore was talking about there, to give yourself the best soil possible, I think it needs to go beyond self-reflection and maybe self-forgiveness. Forgiving yourself for these things, removing these pedals from your shoe, and take it, getting them out of your consciousness, and like, because I think there's power in self-forgiveness. If you can forgive yourself for your misdeeds, for the things that you've done, you can release that guilt, and that guilt, is that stone in your shoe. It's that crap soil. Do you know what I mean? It's going to hold you back because like when you're carrying that guilt or that burden, you don't believe you're worthy. You don't believe you're worthy. You think that you have this cross that you've got to bear. And we've all heard that expression, that cross that, it's my cross to bear. And it is, the things that I've done in the past, the things, maybe the hurtful things that I've said to somebody, whatever it is that I've done in the past, whatever actions that I've done, if they haven't been with the good intentions or the right intentions, that's like a little mark on in my soil, you know, a little kind of, you know, a little stone or whatever it is, you know, like, so I think if you're going to self-reflect, you know, you should commit and self-forgive. Do you know what I mean? You know, you should forgive yourself and you know, clean up your act, right? As to put it, you know, the way Passmore was putting it, chuck some lime on it.
Thanks,
that-
Mick. Very interesting.
So perfect. But Passmore just raised a question in my mind, and I say he raised a question. I thought about it a little earlier, and I don't know the answer to the question I'm asking. But what I am saying is, what is the difference between intentional living and purposeful living? Is there a difference?
There probably is. Before I answer that, I was just thinking of what Mike was talking about when he said we like our pebbles. We do become very precious about stuff we've gone through because it's a story to tell. It's a conversation. It's something to draw attention to ourselves, right? So we love to become very precious with these things. And what we don't realize is that by repeating the story over and over again, we're bringing up the same emotions, the same fear, the same everything that we went through the first time. We're bringing it up. It's there below the surface. So I do find that very interesting that we like that. And the self-forgiveness is a very, very, very big key.
A critical part of it all, yeah.
To progression. So that is very, very interesting. On your question, Peter, I've always felt that living with purpose and living intentionally was slightly different because we have a purpose in life. Purpose is the broader picture.
Yeah.
Purpose is the major goal. But living with intention is every single thing I'm doing now, every minute, and Bob Proctor used to say, is what you're doing right now bringing you closer to your goal? Because a lot of times we have this great purpose in life, and then we take a lot of detours, or we take a lot of going to the lay-bys. I don't know, Mike, if you know what a lay-by is in Africa, you come off the road and you park in the seats and everything, and you just chill for a bit before you carry on with your journey. And we spend a lot of time doing that. And then to bring it into our heart and guarding our heart, it's the same thing that I think Mick has spoken about, reacting, whereas responding, it's a quick reaction. Is that intentional? We still got our purpose. We know what the aim is, but everything else is falling around us. And so we forget to live intentionally. What are your thoughts on that, Passmore? Peter's question?
Very much. I agree with you, Heather. It is possible you can have a purpose, but if you do not have intentions, it can remain on paper. It is there, you have a purpose, but there should be an intention to move. In other words, the intention now will take you into the actions of fulfilling that purpose. I think that's my take on that one.
Mick?
You know, I do understand what a lay-by is, you know, but it made me, when you were talking about that, I was thinking that, you know, like when I set off on a journey just to drive, right, to get from point A to point B, you know, my only intention is to get to that intention, to get to that point B, to get to that destination, you know, but occasionally I actually do have to come off that path. Otherwise, I'm going to run out of petrol. So sometimes I have to come off. Do you know what I mean? And get fueled up and then get back. And do you know what annoys me the most? All the people that I overtook trying to get there, I've got to overtake them again.
Yeah,
That's a very good point. We all travel at different speeds.
So look, I don't know the answer to Peter's question, really. I really don't, you know. But I will spend some time thinking about it for sure. Intentionally thinking about it, purposefully.
Peter, your closing comments?
Yeah, almost going off at a tangent, but I don't think it is a tangent. Something crossed my desk or crossed my computer this morning. from a guy in America, and he's one of these real typical American speakers, but he talks about winning is an inside job. And I just thought that's so relevant to what we've been talking about today. It's this inside job. So I'm gonna share that clip with you today about winning is an inside job. And he talks about what we've got to do. And one of the things he says is that we need to take an inventory of what we've got. What are our gifts and talents, and how can we maximize our gifts and talents? And it's all back to this looking inside ourselves and then moving forward. But I just love this concept of guarding the heart and the gardening thing, and how we need to be looking at our identity and looking at our environment and regularly assessing these things.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you all for your comments. Mick, you can stop the recording.